go ahead and get started. So aloha mai, it's great to see everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. And the first thing, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. The first thing I just want to point out to everyone in the Zoom and also all of the folks at home is that we have a platform that we are going to try out as part of Future Navigators to grow community and grow our capacities to be communicating with one another, communing with one another, not just having Daniel sending lots of emails, too many emails, but really allowing this whole ohana, this whole community, our network of hui around the islands to begin to take over the conversation and provide resources. So we found this platform called Mighty Networks. All of you should have received an invitation to join today in your email. Maybe you need to check your spam folder. But if you don't have it and you want to be a part, and I hope you do want to be a part because you'll be a valuable member to this community, let me know, and we'll get you invited and get you on the platform. It's a place where we can store resources, not that dissimilar from like a Facebook group or story map page, but unlike Facebook, we don't have any ads. It's a private group. We control all of the information that gets shared, and we own all the information that gets shared here. It does allow us to organize events and disseminate information. But I'm really excited because it's going to allow us to form hui. We don't have any formed yet. You'll see there aren't any hui, but our huis can form and communicate internally with one another. And then they'll also be able to discuss different topics related to the program. They'll be able to see updates from other groups. Anytime you find some cool resource that you want to share with everyone, I'd love for you to be able to share it. And I think this will be an easier way to do that. So this is a community that we're all going to own. Again, it's called Mighty Networks. Our page is called futurenavigators.mn.co. And I'm hoping that this allows for a lot more communication between the groups, within the groups, and facilitates that, makes it a little bit easier for you all, and gives us a little window into what this incredible hui, that spans all of our islands is actually up to. So little place for us to connect. I don't know if anyone has any manao on that or wants to share any, but that's kind of the first thing I wanted to share, was that invitation, and just make sure people knew that that was intentional and designed to really help us be able to communicate in more of a networked way, and not in a way that was just me sending too many emails. So yeah, any questions or thoughts about Mighty Network before we jump into some of the ArcGIS and story mapping stuff?
I do kind of have a hesitation. It's like, oh no, another platform. I took a class, we used Discord. It's, I don't know. I wish there was just one way of communicating, but I guess that never quite works.
It used to be we could only talk to each other, but now we have so many different ways that we're expected to communicate. What I don't want, and Paige, I appreciate you bringing that up. What I don't want is it to become a nuisance, right? I just wanted it to become a place that was not thrown into the clutter of some of our, and I'm mainly speaking about myself here, but Facebook Lives or Slack Lives, which is another channel, another platform which I use often, or Discord Lives, and that we had a space that we could kind of call and treat our own, because I do feel that it's really vital if we're going to realize the long-term vision of this program. It's vital that the communication is networked, and that you all are able to share with one another and learn with one another, and that it's not dependent upon Purple Maya, it's not dependent on me, because really the Ike and the perspective and the stories and the wisdom and the action is going to live in all of our communities. So I do want to try it, and I definitely understand the hesitation, and hopefully it's easy. You can sign up through a Gmail account. You can just access, it will send you email notifications if someone posts an important update on there. It's not a place that you have to go and check all the time. So you can set your own notification settings to whatever causes you the least amount of stress. So that's that's a really interesting experiment to try to see how we might foster this communication across all of our islands. Because even on this call, we have Oahu represented, we have Kauai represented, we have Mokuokeawe, we have Hawaii Island represented. So we have a community spread out across the island. So really, really hopeful that we can connect us all. All right, I'm gonna. I see Miss Conrad join. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. I know changing the link last minute was a little confusing, but it's this was helpful to me in sort of facilitating communications. And Noe, I saw a really good question about signing up for Saturday. I would really love it if the crew members, especially if they're going to attend in person, let me know that. And it'd be great if everybody filled out that form, because for those of you who have already filled it out, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a pre-programmed survey, and also just helping me figure out who still needs help with ArcGIS Online. This is the Google form, the session sign-up form that was sent out, and Noe is asking about in the chat. So if you haven't filled that out, I would love it if each participant, each member of your hui could fill it out. The more information we have, the better. And specifically, it's pretty vital if you're planning on attending in person. I'm, as you can imagine, getting a little bit nervous as COVID case numbers just seem to be going through the roof. And I was hoping to be able to bring folks over to Oahu for these sessions. And at least for this session, I really didn't feel super comfortable about encouraging people to make the trip to Oahu, where most of our case numbers are. So yeah, if we can know about numbers, and we're going to observe, it's going to keep it pretty small and observe, pretty careful protocol. And I know some people are not able to attend in person because they live with kupuna or somebody who needs extra care in avoiding any exposure. So totally understand that.
Daniel, if I had, Kiko was going to come, but he decided he had too much canoe work to do. And I have one other hui member that was interested, but because of COVID, there won't be the ability to give people rides or anything like that to help out.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I think we're going to have to talk about in terms of what support people will need and being able to participate as fully as possible. My hope is that there is still support for people who want to come to Oahu. That resource is still available. I'm just excited to, and I know even locally, it's going to be hard to not be able to carpool and things like that to locations and sites and get together. Yeah, I want us to do the best we can and have those conversations, make sure we're being pono about it. So yeah, but thank you for that question. And sorry, Noe, for misunderstanding, but it would be great to have it would be great to have all of the community members that are actively engaged with the hui on Mighty Networks. It would be great to learn from everyone. If there is, what I think it would be cool, because it actually facilitate conversations within your hui. So if every hui member joins, you'll be able to send messages quite easily and organize information about your own story map and your own in the field sessions much more easily. And there'll also be, we will probably create a group or hui for just hui captains as well. And so that's, another place where, yeah, absolutely, we'd love to have hui captains make sure that they sign up. So, I think the conversation in these online environments, I'm not an expert in facilitating them. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to to find a way to make that engagement and that experience meaningful. But I know that having our young people on that platform to be able to share, I feel like is important. And one of the reasons I didn't want to put it on a typical social media channel or another channel that wasn't maybe going to be as secure or as private. So, you know, I wanted to really keep it to this community and this Hui, so that everyone could feel safe participating on the platform. But of course, every participant, every family, every Hui, you guys can decide for yourself what makes the most sense for you. But that it's a resource that's available to you through the program. So.
Daniel, I had a question kind of related to that, thinking about platforms and about my own Hui with Robin and I. Because we're with a school and I have my students with us, do you recommend all of my students registering to be part of the ArcGIS? Or is that something that kind of as me as a teacher can help facilitate with them and be like the point man for that? Because I know that Robin and I weren't super clear on that. We weren't sure.
Great. It's a great question. I don't think you're the only ones who were unsure about that. What's happening in some of the Hui, it's a great question and a good segue into our focus on ArcGIS. Before we invite Lauren to share with us. And aloha to Ikaika, and I think aloha Pumehana just came in, and Keala, aloha, thanks for being here representing the Ka'ahui family. So yeah, I think what I've seen happening is that some Hui are identifying one point person who's going to be their sort of GIS and story mapping guru. And they're the only ones creating an ArcGIS account. And then some of our Hui are saying, hey, we'd like everyone to be able to learn a little bit about this tool. And I feel like the story mapping tool in particular is accessible for everyone. So it's something that we all could use without feeling too many technology barriers. It's an interesting web-based storytelling tool. So I'm happy if all of the Hui members, if all of the participants in the program want to sign up for an ArcGIS account, we have that resource available. If people want to take a more sort of measured and focused approach, that's okay too. So I would say get to know your Hui and those students, and if it feels like it's something that they would be interested in, they would actually log into and they'd want to be building story maps and figuring out how GIS works, then we would love that. If not, if it feels like the story map construction is largely going to fall to you or to Robin, then that's also fine. That's no problem. Is that helpful?
No, that's great. Super helpful. And I guess given that, then if because ArcGIS is still kind of a little bit unknown to Robin and I, if in a week or two as we learn more, if I'm like, actually, this would be great for them, is it too late to get them kind of signed up?
No, at any point throughout the duration of the program, if we finish and everyone goes, oh my gosh, I didn't know you guys were making that awesome story map. I want to know how to do that. Then, right before the buzzer at the end, not that there's no end to this. I hooked you guys in for life. I hope so. But we can bring people in. One of the things that I'll do at the end of the program is actually work with those of you who represent schools and organizations. If you don't already have ArcGIS accounts and access through your organization, how to migrate your data into accounts if you want them for yourself. So rather than just using the Purple Maya Pacific Blue Studios ArcGIS account, actually being able to sort of set up and run your own ArcGIS organizational account. So that'll be an option that, if HTA is interested in that, or if Reef Guardians or any of the particular groups that are represented in our overall Hui, that's an option there.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Outstanding. So I'm going to, and you don't have to. Oh, I love it. Paige, I'm just reading I'm reading your chat, and absolutely, we want to help those folks who are not on Oahu when it's safe to do so and when they feel comfortable doing so, coming and engaging in in-person sessions. And I think that there's support from me and from the Purple Maya team and the project team to help make that happen. And again, within the broader community, you know, that's one of the hopefully good things about Mighty Networks is when we do need help with something, whether it's logistical or technical or cultural, we can reach out to each other in that space and receive that support. Of course, I'm happy to give it when that's the most appropriate thing. But yeah, I'm excited for that. For those who came in just a little bit recently, we started by talking about Mighty Networks, which you should have gotten an invite in your email, possibly in your spam folder, from Mighty Networks to join today. And I'll start by sharing that again, just so people can see it who just came in. But this is a platform to facilitate communication across our group in a networked way, between Hui, within Hui. It's also a place to share resources. You'll notice this will be a document I share on the screen a little bit later, but this is Kainalu's resources. Those of you who were there on December 15th will remember Kainalu sharing his beautiful story map regarding Papahanaumokuakea with us. There's the Zoom canoe and our story map links. There's a little bit of a welcome. All of our events will show up here, but really, what I'm excited about is opportunities for discussion, for all of us to be able to engage in sharing resources with one another, sharing mana'o with one another, asking questions, asking for help. And you'll be able to see, I like these features, right? Who's online? You can find people or Hui who are close to you based on where you are. So there's some interesting functionality. You can host little live events. So if your own Hui or between Huis just want to connect with each other and have a little video call, there's capabilities to do that, and we can talk about how to access that. I just want to point our attention to, oh, I should publish after making some changes. So I just want to draw attention again to our story map that we are using for this program. I am trying to keep that updated. I've been a little slower than I'd like to be, but I'm getting to the point where it's nearly updated. And hopefully I can start organizing it a little bit more easily. If you go down to the voyage and you can scroll down, you'll see a couple of interesting things. One, of course, recordings from past meetings. I need to put the registration link here. There's a new registration link for the rescheduled session with Charlie and Katie. That's Saturday, January 29th. So there will be a link down here for you to sign up. Oh, I've already put it there. So you could click on that button and register for that link, register for that session, excuse me. This is our December 15th recording. Don't expect anyone to watch the whole thing. It's like 2.5 hours long, but it was amazing to hear introductions from so many of our Hui members. Yeah, that was exciting. And then you can start to see, okay, here's where we're gonna be on Saturday. And you can get the sign up form, access to the streams, which we're gonna have throughout the day. And then you can see some of our partners excited to go sailing in the morning and learn more and practice using 3R Waters Follow the Drop. Austin Kino, who's here in that picture, will be with us to take us out on the canoe. We'll be working with the Restore with Resilience team in Malama, Honolulu in the afternoon. And Captain Bruce Blankenfeld is going to join us on the beach at sunset for another really awesome session. So excited for that. There's some information here. I put a tide chart, the Hanauma Bay tide chart. I put sunrise and sunset information, all of that. So I'll come back to that, but just wanted to point our attention. We have this story map that we're building together now. And this will be one of many story maps that are going to be built as a result of this, this experience. This is the Pacific Blue Studios organization in ArcGIS. So this is the home page. I'm already logged in, but if I wasn't, I could log into this account. This is the URL. So a lot of times if you just go to arcgis.com, it's going to take you to a basic page. You'll need to log in through your organizational account. So you'll need to enter Pac Blue Studios. Or pacbluestudios.maps.arcgis.com. And that's going to be the domain that gets you to our organization's work. And so I did see in the chat, I think it was from Noe, that can we send the invites again? Absolutely. we can send those invites again so that people can get updated. There is also going to be a group within our organization called Future Navigators. So if I click on groups, for me, I'll see all of the groups, but this is the one. This is the one that's been created for our group. This is going to allow us to sort of share content a little bit more easily if we want to. I can see probably who's in this group and what content is in here. So, you know, this is where you're going to want to be able to get into to sort of really start digging around and playing with GIS. Yeah. You can go to a tab when you click on map. That was a particular piece of content. It's going to take you to the beginnings of a map that, you know, right now this is the Future Navigators crew. So this is the data from our from the survey that you all filled out when you applied to the program, right? So we have that data here. We're going to learn a little bit about how to use this, but that map function, that's a place you're going to want to be able to get. You know, the navigation here is pretty easy. There's gallery of content, right? Mostly you'll just use home and groups and content and map. Those are the main things that you all will use in navigating the GIS platform and creating as part of this platform. This is another really important site, and I'll put it into the chat. Stop sharing just for a moment, or maybe I don't need to, but my screen will get blocked out for a second. This story maps site, when you're logged in to ArcGIS and you open this, you will be taken to the story maps page where you can create a new story. And this is one of the things that you might want to play around with if you haven't already. Once you get your account and you get successfully logged in, then go to storymaps.arcgis.com and click on new story. And when I do that, I'm just going to start from scratch, and that's going to open a brand new story map for you. Yeah, so it launches the story builder. Yeah, and we're not going to go through a lot right now, but all you really need to know in telling this story, right, is that wherever you see this plus button, and it'll, as you can tell, it'll help you kind of navigate that a little bit. It's going to give you tips on what to do. But whenever you see that plus button, of course, we can put a title in. We can change the design. We can, you know, shift the elements of the story a little bit. I can add a navigation bar. Can choose from a handful of different themes, right? All of those sorts of things. That's in design. But wherever I see this plus button, that's where I'm able to add a feature. Yeah, that's where I'm able to add some kind of content. Yeah, and this is what allows you to create in Story Map. Now, obviously, adding a map is the Story Map component. When you click on that, I have a few people coming in, including Lauren. I'm excited. When you click on Add a Map, it's going to give you thank you. It's going to give you quite a few options. It's going to, if you have many maps, right? So if you have a lot of content, then you can choose from the content that you already have, or you can create an express map. So that's basically creating a map from scratch. And so most of you, one of the first things we're going to do in our story maps, and we'll demonstrate this after Saturday's session, is we're going to create some new kinds of maps, one of them being an express map. It's not the only kind of map that you can add, existing maps or express maps. If I scroll down a little bit, there is an immersive feature called Map Tour. This is also something that we're going to learn that allows you to upload a folder of images that you take during your in the field session that you've gathered over time from a particular place, and you can easily organize those images. It automatically places them on the map, and then you get to decide how you want them to be displayed. I'm not going to go into detail today on Map Tour, but I just wanted to say that those are the different ways. There are basically 3 different ways we can create a map from scratch in our ArcGIS account, and it'll show up when we click on Add a Map. It'll be there in our content. We can build an express map in Story Maps, or we can create a map tour using images that we have. Yeah, so that's a function. But I also just wanted to showcase that obviously it's very easy to add text of all different sizes and whatnot. When you add text as a heading and you select navigation bar on your story map, it will create a nice navigation bar with all the different headings that you've created. You can add images and videos. You can embed websites, interactive websites. You can add audio files. And the reason I'm saying this is because this helps us start thinking about what kind of experience do we want to create in our story maps? How do we want to tell our stories? I was talking with the folks at Local EA yesterday about recording audio interviews of some of their kapuna, longtime stewards and caretakers of the local there in Haleiwa, and having those live as audio files that are with associated images and maybe placed even on a map. So what kinds of data, what kinds of media assets do you want to have? And then one other thing that we're going to be playing around with, this timeline feature is really cool. It creates a really nice visual. Some of us might want to use it to help tell the story of our place over time. But the swipe feature is particularly interesting, and I included it on our story map. If you scroll down in session 1 at the bottom, there's a little story mapping skills with a link to an article about adding a swipe block to your story. You can do maps or images, but this is an image that Malama Mauna Lua likes to show. Pardon the Kapiolani Women's and Children's Ambulance outside my window. But you can see it creates a pretty interesting feature where you can see the current state of the bay and the bay before restoration efforts began, right? So it creates a nice little visual feature to orient people to changes in place over time. This is another very easy to embed that feature in a story map. And so that's going to be another tool that we're going to be learning how to use. Lauren, I'm super glad you're here, and I'm just about to wrap up. I'm going to share one more link. This is another tool, and probably the easiest way, I think, to create a basic map in your content is to create a crowdsourced map. So I'm going to add this survey 123 link into the chat. It's another thing we're going to learn. Again, we're going to learn a lot. We're going to forget most of it. But this is a really powerful tool. This is the way that I created the map of all of our different applicant hui. I built that application using survey 123 so that when you filled it out, that data automatically populated onto this map. So I could just see you all popping up as you submitted those responses. You popped up on this map automatically. So I was able to create a crowdsourced map. And we're going to do something like this on Saturday where folks are going to have access to a survey, and we're going to be documenting some of the things that we see in Mauna Lua using a survey 123 app that then populates into a map that we'll incorporate into the story map for Mauna Lua. So I'm excited for that. The only other thing I'll say, there's maybe 3 other things before I invite us to introduce and hand the floor over to Lauren, our guest for tonight. And that is, this resource is available on Mighty Networks. You also got it to me in an email. It's a really beautiful little summary of the resources that Kainalu used when creating his story map. If you remember, he was a rookie to creating story maps. I know he is now a finalist in the ESRI National Geographic Story Map Challenge. But a few months ago, right, 6 months ago, Kainalu had never created a story map before. And so these are some of the resources that helped him out. I, in particular, like this one, planning and outlining your story. And so I encourage hui captains or the story mapping leads or GIS leads to give this some attention and start thinking about, what kind of stories would we tell and how can we make sure we're organized and ready to do that? And then 2 other resources that are going to be helpful in that planning and outlining. I'm using Google Drive to store our media and data assets. You all will be invited to this folder. It's going to be a shared folder. And anyone who attends the session or has relevant media or data that they'd like to share and make available to the group that's going to be creating the Mauna Lua story map, they can include this, they can put it into the appropriate folder here. You can see that I have a folder for audio files if people are recording audio, for citizen science and sensor data, for any maps that get created or are found, maybe old maps, maybe maps that don't exist yet in digital form, photos, text, and videos. And whatever we collect from that day is going to go, that people want to share are going to be able to go into this folder for use in creating that story map. So thinking about how you want to manage assets within your own team, data within your own team, making it available to everyone in the team for them to think about, for them to share, and making sure that we have conversations around data ownership, that we know that we have the permissions that we need to be gathering and then sharing any of the data that we're going to be sharing. That's something we're going to talk about more and more throughout the program. And then the other thing, and then I'm going to stop and open for a couple of questions before Lauren shares more about her journey with 3R Water and Follow the Drop, is that ESRI has a cartography course that's starting in just under a month. It's free to all of you because of your ArcGIS accounts and membership in the organization. One of the benefits is access to this free course. So I encourage you to think about, they generally say it's about 2 to 3 hours a week. I don't know anybody who has an extra 2 to 3 hours a week in their schedule right now, or maybe ever. But if the story mapping stuff or the GIS stuff really feels empowering to you, if you feel like it's something that you want to explore, if you really see the power and benefit of being able to create and share maps of your own communities, of your own places, then I would encourage you to think about joining this course. And I'll make sure that the link to this course goes out in both email and on the Mighty Network, so that you have, and also on our story map, so you have access to that. And I think from me, that is it. I'm going to put the link to 3R Water in the chat so that we have it. You do have access to the doc. I see Drew's question now that I'm back in the chat. You do have access to the doc, and I am going to pause myself. I just ran through a whirlwind of information that if it left you going like, what is Daniel talking about? That's totally fine. We're going to keep revisiting story mapping and ArcGIS in these kinds of sessions, often with a lot more focus on one or two particular elements of story map that people want to incorporate or are trying to learn about. So I look forward to that. There's additional resources through ESRI available to you all. We're not in a rush. We're going to have some kind of story map built by early April, representing our places and the stories that we want to tell about those places. But ultimately, like I said earlier, this is a lifelong game of caring for our places. Longer than that, it's a generational game. So I'm super excited and am interested to hear any questions or any mana'o that people want to share about the story maps or any concerns. If I'm not going to promise I'll be able to answer them all at this moment, but I'd love if anyone is thinking something, is holding something, and they want to share it, we can come back to that. Oh, Keala, I see Keala's question in the chat about how old do you have to be to join the cartography course? And Keala, you are the story mapping lead for your Hui, and you are welcome to join that course. You are. We're not going to ask them how old you have to be. We're just going to, if you want to take it, and we're going to get you in there, and everyone's going to be blown away. Like, oh my gosh. Maybe don't even tell them. They'll just assume you're like 85-year-old GIS Jedi. All right. Well, thank you all. And mostly I want to thank a really special guest who joined us and had to listen to me ramble at the end of that. But I reached out to Lauren a few weeks ago. I've known about the Follow the Drop app for a while. It was part of the Purple Prize when I was involved with Purple Maya Foundation and the Purple Prize a few years ago. From there, it's only grown in sort of significance and scope, and there's so many cool things happening with 3R Water, Lauren's company, and the Follow the Drop app. Her own story is wonderful and remarkable, and I just feel really glad that she's here to share a little bit of it with us, and then also join the early morning crew on Saturday to let us practice using the Follow the Drop application. I'll let Lauren talk more about it, but one of the things that we are all interested in is how can we develop and deepen our relationship to places to understand the interconnections that exist and how intimately connected the health of the ocean is to what we're doing on the Aina, on the land. And Follow the Drop to me really represents an incredibly powerful use of technology for becoming better stewards of the land and becoming, because of its focus on water, becoming better stewards of the ocean as well. And I think that that's it's a really interesting fit for us. It's a cool map-based GIS informed application, and I'm excited for us to learn a little bit more about Lauren and the tools she's helping to build and bring to our community. So Lauren, thanks for being here, and sorry for being a little late and passing it over to you, but welcome, and we're excited to have you.
No problem, Dan. That was perfect timing. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with some stories. This looks like an amazing opportunity for us in Hawaii and in general. So I guess without further ado, I'll introduce myself a little bit. So I'm Lauren Roth Venu. Just a little bit about my background. I've been in the water sector for about 2 decades now, for about 22 years this February. And essentially what we do is we do a lot of kind of the where it's called green infrastructure, but it's basically the design of natural systems to manage water. And so a lot of my career has been as a designer and planner in the private sector for both the state and the counties and private development. But here, I'll just.
Lauren, we lost your audio, just muted for a second. Sorry.
Oh, I just put in the chat real quick, the Roth Ecological, if you just are interested to learn more about ecological design and nature-based solutions. But really what I'm here to talk about today is Follow the Drop and 3R Water. And really what emerged from my career in Roth Ecological was recognizing that there's this kind of this huge, there can be a huge educational gap between where we're trying to go and build climate resiliency and like what is green infrastructure, and what our city is trying to do in terms of managing stormwater. So really 3R Water came about to create an easy to use tool that we could quickly identify on properties where and how much stormwater is being generated. And then using professional calculations that's embedded into the app, it'll help optimize different sizes and types of green infrastructure solutions. And I'll walk you through a little bit about that today, and a little bit about the pilot we're doing with the city and county of Honolulu and how all of that is what's going on today. So, and how you guys hopefully might want to get involved. So I'm just gonna, I know you guys might be a little PowerPointed out, so I'm gonna try to go through this quickly because I'm sure it's 7:44, but let's see what we can do here. Can you guys see my screen? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So again, really what its whole mission and what we're wanting to do, not just here in Hawaii, but really beyond, is really we want to enable cities throughout the world to begin adapting their communities to climate change. And so what we're doing is we're collecting stormwater metrics for those cities, but also really importantly, we're also giving more accessibility and hopefully equity to these green infrastructure solutions so that everyone can be a part of reducing flooding and pollution. And so I'm just going to give you an example of why this is important. So this is the city of Houston, but also could be very much represented by Honolulu. In 1986, you can see all the green areas being like prairies and wetlands, grasslands, and then the purple and gray areas is more the urban spaces. And so, just in the course of 30 years, you have about 70% of those wetlands and greenlands, green areas removed and replaced with urbanization. And so, you know, if this was a class, I'd ask you, why is this important? So why do we care about that? Well, if you can imagine, you know, all of those green spaces act like sponges. So every time it rains, those green areas are able to hold and absorb that water and get it back into the ground. When we start seeing more and more impervious surfaces, we're only going to just continue to see, you know, again, more urbanization with climate change. But really, what we're beginning to see and understand is that we're seeing more flooding occurring on a regular basis. We get more pollution in our water. And ironically, too, this even impacts our future water supply, because in Hawaii, in Honolulu, we're really blessed to have most of our groundwater, granted with Red Hill, another story, but it's all in the ground, right? And so if we're just stormwater, when it hits a hard surface, it's just going to go out down the street into a pipe and into the ocean, and that's wasted water not getting into our ground. So it also has a really big impact on how we think about water security. And so if you're not familiar with green infrastructure, it's okay. A lot of people aren't. And this is kind of also some of the pieces of what we're trying to communicate to the layperson or everyone who can take a part in this. But really the idea is, you know, biomimicking how natural systems work when urbanization wasn't there. So if you guys can all remember your science classes a little bit with the hydraulic cycle or hydrologic cycle, when it rains, you know, we talk about, you hear Board of Water Supply saying, you know, the rain follows the forest, right? So the trees would help capture that rainwater. Then it gets down into the ground, and their roots actually create a pathway for that water to get back into the groundwater supplies. And while it's doing that, it's also filtering that water. And you know, you have processes like absorbing CO2. And so what we're trying to do is then put back those ecological services in the urbanized spaces. So number one, we can then, you know, capture stormwater as closest to where the rain falls on a hard surface, get it filtered through these natural systems, and then importantly, recharge those underlying groundwater supplies. So these are some typical ones. You might be familiar with it, the rainwater harvesting tanks. Over here, this looks like a landscape area, but you can see rainwater is being diverted into it. So that's typically called like a rain garden. Sometimes they're a bioretention. This is a green roof. Green roofs are also just engineered usually on flat surfaces with plants, and they have some drainage that allow water to overflow. And then this is a permeable pavement surface. So it can be grass. It can also just be another pavement. But again, when it rains, the water can filter and get back into the ground. So these are the kinds of practices that we're really trying to get you know, all properties to be a part of. Even if they did their small little bit, it really adds up into the bigger picture. So Follow the Drop really, again, was it actually initially started back in 2018 with Kupu. And this is kind of originally when it emerged out of it. Again, it was really meant to be this educational tool that we could really begin communicating what these practices are to students, and then how they can go about looking for opportunities to implement green infrastructure on their campuses. And then importantly, then take them back home and hopefully engage their families to get these kind of practices happening. And so we had a whole host of amazing partners during this original time period where we came up with the version 1.0 of the app. And then with that, we ended up piloting it in 5 Oahu schools. And basically with the kids, we were able to, you know, basically use them while we were developing the app. We had kids provide feedback to make it user-friendly and fun. And then the whole idea is then they were able to get these projects installed at their campuses, you know, based on the size and type systems they were selecting in the app, and then money we were able to help them raise to get them installed. And then with that, there's a whole bunch of curriculum that's still available. If you go to the website, there's a link that'll take you to where, if you wanted to look at the curriculum, it's on the teacher's website at the moment. But really where we are today is that Follow the Drop has kind of emerged out of just being an educational platform for schools to be really a broad-based community engagement tool for, in this case, the greater island of Oahu. And so the whole thing is that the city and county of Honolulu is picking up the app to be part of, I'm not sure, I don't have enough time to go through the stormwater utility, but if you're not aware of the stormwater utility, maybe Dan, you could type in the chat, it's stormwater utilityoahu.org, I believe. But what's going to happen is the city is going to create a fee based on the amount of impervious area that properties have. And with that, they'll give you a credit if you can implement some of these green infrastructure practices or literally remove the concrete off your property. And so they have issues of being able to track the locations of these projects, as well as making sure that they stay maintained. So our app is now emerged from just being an educational tool, but really one to support the city's future utility. Okay, so now I'm just going to give you a quick walkthrough. I mean, we're going to, in theory, do this on Saturday, but I'm just going to kind of give you some of the key features of how the app works if you're a user. And so if you're a user, for example, you start by trying to identify an opportunity around your property where stormwater might be draining through. So a typical household, for example, might have some gutters and downspouts. So when it rains on your roof, if you follow that drop, it'll go through your gutters and then down a downspout and ultimately sometimes down the driveway, and then that ends up into a storm sewer. So we want to try to capture that, for example, before it hits off your property. So you'll just, the app will bring you into your geolocation, and it'll take a guess on what your address is. You can either accept that address. There's actually this little drop down here. You can actually enter in the address to also take you to the correct location. Once you're there, you'll see this area to prompt you to take a photo. This is a photo from your typical device. These are going to be iPads out in the field. And it'll line up with different types of typical drainage devices that you'd want to capture from. So you try to match your photo to one of these icons that you can scroll through the bottom. And again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture stormwater on existing properties. So these are all retrofits more than new projects, or like projects that don't have any buildings on them. Then you're gonna like walk around and you basically try to define what your surrounding areas around that downspout. Is it flat? Is there a lot of slope? Is it bare soil? Is it grassy? And so this really then kind of helps determine which best management practice might be best for that site. So for example, if it's too sloping, you typically wouldn't be able to put in something like a rain garden without, putting in a retaining wall or doing something like that. You would maybe go with a different type of solution. And then from that, the next step is that you'll be prompted, and I guess if you guys are using ESRI, you might be getting to know the polygon tool, but anyway, it'll prompt you to draw then the area of that roof, let's say, that's going to that downspout that you're trying to capture from. So you might want to walk around the building. So in this case, let's say they want to capture from downspouts, maybe in these all around this building. They're going to tie it into one big rain garden. So they would take this whole area of the roof. And so just by tapping on the screen, it'll draw that polygon for you, and then it'll automate what the square footage is of that roof. Then what we do is we bring in the rainfall data for the state. So based on that geolocation, all you have to do is turn on a button, and it'll tell you what the annual average rainfall is for this particular location of your pin. And then with those pieces of information, we are able then to generate this tan bar graph to start. And what it'll do is it'll tell you, in this case, about 80,000 gallons or so of rainwater is coming through that downspout per year. Now, in the back end, it's giving you the optimum value of either a rain catchment or a rain garden. And so if you selected the rain catchment tank, the optimum value in this case is about a 2,300 gallon tank. So it's pretty big. So let's say you're a property owner and you are saying that's too much for me, can't afford it, or I don't have enough space. But you're thinking, oh, I could put a couple, maybe 250 gallon tanks here. And so you put in 500 gallons. The app will then generate a bar graph telling you then of that volume, how much you would be capturing. So I'm not doing a live demo, but hopefully on Saturday I can show you. You can literally tap on these bars. It'll tell you the volume and the percent capture. So in this case, it's about, let's say about 18,000 gallons a year of the 80,000 being produced. This on the right is what we're doing right now with the city as they're developing the credit program. So you'll see this when we use it on Saturday for those who are using it. I just want to give you an idea of what it's going to look like, because when the credit becomes in place, it'll automate what your annual fee credit is based on the size and type system you select. So then that way you can make a decision on whether or not you want to submit that project for a potential credit, or just have this for your own working knowledge. And then there's these summary pages. So essentially you as a user can collect data under your user account in all different locations. You can see them in a map view in different drop colors. You can also see them in a chart view. So if you say you want to compare different projects for what the volumes of stormwater are and what you might be able to capture, you can rank them. These aren't ranked, the button's not on, but you could rank them. And then there's this this list view or summary page, which shows then all your projects and the status of these projects. So again, currently right now, like, and if you help on this project, like we're just saving them as draft because we're just wanting to communicate, work with community and see if they'd be interested in these types of projects. In the future, if they get submitted to the city then can review them directly in the app and change the status of those projects. And both you and the city can track them, the history of these projects. So if I just kind of show you, there's a history icon here. If they were to click on that, you can then see all the steps that one project has gone through. You'll be able to see the timestamps of your last photo or when the fee credit was applied. The city will be able to push notifications to you. If they give you a credit, you might have to upload a new photo to verify it's still being maintained, but it's a way for them to communicate with you and as well for you to track your own projects. Okay, so what we're doing right now is then with the pilot, and again, I won't go through all that, I might skip through some of this, but really this was to come together, we want to be able to test the software in the community to get feedback again, to make sure that it was easy to use. But also we have these surveys that when we use the app with the community, that we want to be able to see what would drive them to install these projects. Would they need additional financial assistance? Or is there other concerns that the city should know, as they move forward in this initiative? But this is generally what our scope has been. And I'm not going to go through all of it. We do have some green workforce development with this. So if anyone who has a high school diploma or greater, the city is sponsoring these, what's called the National Green Infrastructure Certification Program, where you can actually become certified as a contractor or inspector in green infrastructure. So we're trying to create basically a new workforce similar to like renewable energy, for example, that we can build out more folks getting these in. So just real quick, we were able to remotely go into the whole watershed of Aina Haina in about, I think it was about 2,000 odd properties. And began to look at going through the app on each one of these properties, assess what the stormwater runoff values are and what the potential of reduction could be should everyone implement these optimum size green infrastructure systems. And so we divided the watershed into quadrants just to kind of showcase the data a little easier. And of course, then in the upper watersheds, you get more rainfall. So we had about an average about 55 inches of rain in the upper part of Aina Haina. The average roof area being about 2,500 square feet. And then the total stormwater, just these 80 odd homes, turns out to be about 6.3 million gallons of stormwater per year. And that's the equivalent of about 50% of the water supply that these properties generate. All this water is just going off into a storm drain. Now, if they were to all implement optimum size green infrastructure, approximately 90% of that could be captured. And if they just did a rain barrel, which is about a 50 gallon tank, you get some capture, but not as significant as if they were to go with larger sizes. And so this was done for all the residential communities, the schools, the commercial areas. And again, this was, we were able to look at the data and compare, for example, in just one of the quadrants, the tan being all of the stormwater runoff, the blue being representative of what could be captured. This is just showing if you just did rain barrels at all of these locations, it's a much smaller volume than the capture rate on optimum size green infrastructure. And then we were able to, the software actually outputs an Excel file that we're able to just summarize and tally up the data. And so with that, just so you can just kind of get, I think the main thing to understand is that, we're looking at about 118 million gallons of stormwater coming off just Aina Haina alone annually. And 90% of that could be captured. It's a pretty significant volume. So the idea here is with this data is how many of the folks in this area would need to implement projects to make any kind of dent in terms of reducing the stormwater runoff. So what we're doing now then with Malama Mauna Lua is then essentially from that data, we're now wanting to go back into that community and see how many of the pools of people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Aina Haina, but because we are working with Malama Mauna Lua, we are looking at, from the Kahala to Hawaii Kai area, because that's what their jurisdiction really is under their nonprofit. But the idea is that with the pools of people, we want to understand what would it be that how many of them would actually want to implement these projects And then again, what would it take for them to get these installed? And so, so we've done with, I guess it started last summer, I guess in the fall, really. We've been, doing different community outreach events with Malama Mauna Lua. So we'd had booths set up and talk about their watersheds. We were able to use the app at the booth, so you can just type in, folks can type in their address and walk through, getting the data using the app. But then they can also sign up for free rainwater assessments. So this is really what we're been really trying to do, is get people to allow Malama Mauna Lua or folks at 3R Water to actually come to your house to get a free assessment. It's valued already at a $500 valuation, to basically use the app with the property owner, and again, help them identify locations for where these green infrastructure projects could go on their own property. And then with that, we have been offering anyone who signs up and can, get their house assessed. They enter to win a free rain barrel. So we have a rain barrel that we're going to have a drawing at. And so if they want to sign up, they can be part of that entrance to win. The other kind of really cool thing about it is Malama Mauna Lua is actually continuing this program, so that as we document people who want to actually get these projects installed, there'll be other future grants that they're going to go for to help get them installed for free. What's neat about this program too, that the city has recognized, is they think this is a really great way to work with nonprofit groups and folks in the community, and are considering, when they roll out the incentive, the credit program, to actually help fund different nonprofit groups and different watersheds to kind of be the liaison with the community and continue to be able to offer these kind of free rainwater assessments to help people use the app and get some projects installed on their properties. So anyway, so that's kind of generally I just want to give you guys a little bit of background, and then maybe it'll all become a little more intuitive once we're kind of in the field. But really, the whole idea is we really want to just kind of create more equity and getting these types of practices out to as many people as possible, and really opening up, trying not to have any more of the scratching of the heads of what can I do, what is green infrastructure, and really give those tools to empower people to make those decisions. So that's all I have. Hopefully, if there's any questions right now, I'm more than happy to help answer. And otherwise, I know for those who are interested, Saturday morning, we'll have a little more of a demo.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Mahalo nui, Lauren. That was awesome. And that's correct. At 9:30 on Saturday, even if you can't make it to the sunrise and the sailing session with Austin, if you want to come to the 9:30 to 10:30 session and just see the app working, let me know, and I can fill you in on where we're going to be, and we create a little communication around being able to do that. To me, it's so exciting, Lauren, and all of us, just because I feel like culturally, traditionally, communities would know what was happening to their water. Their water was so critical, right? They needed it to flow through their communities in certain ways in order to thrive. And developing innovative green infrastructure was one of the most essential aspects of life in Hawaii and elsewhere. And now to just think, wow, all that water is just being wasted. Feels like such a crime in some ways. And so I love that we're utilizing technology, we're utilizing GIS, we're pairing data, layering data, and putting it in the hands of folks who are hopefully going to be willing to do something with it. And I just think for all of us, as we think about our own hui, one of the second phase of this program is really an invitation to think about what can we do in our communities to sort of care for them and grow the abundance and regenerate our communities, make them climate resilient, inspired by these technologies, inspired by the ancestors, and inspired by our place. So I think that's, to me, I was kind of kicking myself for not calling Lauren earlier, and really appreciate with just a couple weeks notice, Lauren, you jumping in. I'm curious. Yeah, I saw there's a couple of questions from Noi and the Ohana Iokepo Guerrero, and they're wondering, hey, we live over in Kahalu, or we want to get involved, we want to do this, and I think their community partners, Kako Iwi, and Lauren, I'm sure you're familiar with the Heia as a bit of a model, but there's also some interesting development and issues with trying to protect water resources, even in a place that's being regenerated in pretty remarkable ways. But yeah,
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
some questions in the chat if you want to tune into those. And
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Right now, the app isn't freely available for everyone because mostly because we're doing our customization for the city right now. We do have the version available that Malama Mauna Lua has been using, and so I think my hope would be, I guess, number one, because I know Malama Mauna Lua is a partner with this the work that Dan's doing in this particular project. Number one, like if there were any folks who are interested to kind of help with the community engagement or want to get involved with rainwater assessments or want to learn more, to let me know. And we can get you on a list to kind of help out when those opportunities arise. The second part that could be interesting is that I know it sounds like you're going to be going into a lot of different communities with this program, and maybe Dan, I can talk to you about it some offline or at a different time, but maybe because we have basically a handful of iPads that we have available from 3R Water and Malama Mauna Lua to do this particular pilot. But if there are iPads available, we could kind of give that current version that be downloaded, and again maybe we spread the rainwater assessment program to a broader reach. We would probably want to make sure we get you guys all trained up and make sure it's all being communicated, hopefully the way that we wanted to move forward in terms of just the messaging. So it's all the same, and we're not saying one thing to someone and another to another. So whoever wants to really get involved, maybe let me, Dan and I know about who you guys are, and then we can kind of figure out how it could be used in other areas, and try to strategize that with your different programming as part of this.
I would love if for anyone on this call or anyone listening to the recording, if your hui is like, oh, this would be something that we would really like to explore and get involved in, then please let us know, because I feel like, yeah, these are really critical questions and interesting, relevant tools to us. And yeah, and if it's something that the hui feels like is part of your story, part of the regeneration in your community, which I think it probably will be, then yeah, please just let us know, and that'll be easier to coordinate if we have like maybe 1 or 2, 3 or 4 hui that are especially interested and want to pilot this or want to figure out how they can get involved with it a little bit more. I know Lauren's always really generous with helping us figure out. She's dedicated herself to this work for a long time, so she likes teammates for sure.
And I guess the only other ask I would say is if you have an auntie or a friend or someone you know in the Malama Mauna Lua region, could you let them know that this is happening? And friends and family, like, let's get them signed up minimally to get this assessment going, because really we want feedback as possible during this process, and it's only going to really help make the overall city program better, our program better, help us be able to communicate better to the needs of people that are out in the community. So if you have anyone in that area, please also let them know or send them to Malama Mauna Lua's website to sign up.
That's awesome. And Lauren, I'll draw attention to one comment that came from Jennifer, who's teaching in Waimea on the Big Island. And, I wonder if there's continuing to do the amazing sort of path that you took on Oahu, working with Oahu schools and growing from an educational app and practice into this practice that's being used by the stormwater utility here in City and County of Honolulu on Oahu. And is there sort of hope that we can start bringing this in some similar ways and follow some similar pathways in other counties on the other islands too?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to certainly get it in all the counties. I would say 2 things, because right now the way that we've been working, just so that we can kind of keep operations going, is to have the cities or those counties actually enable us to pay for the app and keep things updated, do the data management. And then I think once we get to a certain scale, then we'll be able to create, I think, a free education version for everyone. We would just basically need to be able to have a separate way we would manage the data. It's essentially kind of what that point is. But in the meantime, I think just so you know that the curriculum is all available, and you can do the curriculum even without the app. So we created some of the lesson plans that you could do with the app. Otherwise, it actually walks you through the math and science on how to do it without the app. So there's, in all ways, it's the learning experience can still be there. That being said, like if there's any grant opportunities, like, or other things we can do to kind of come in and figure out how we could do that in the Big Island, and maybe grab the county as a partner and hopefully get them engaged. Because I know they're trying to plan, especially on the Kona side, a bunch more resilience and green infrastructure. Then that could be a really interesting partnership as well. So I really do want to get it to that point where we can have it, you know, especially free for all educational use. And we're just probably about a year or so out from that, just as we're focusing on the Honolulu for right now.
Awesome. And yes, I got a message about emailing you guys the links that are in the chat for sure. And also, Lauren, is it okay to share your email with folks?
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
the as well? And then one of the things I just want to call out is, you know, there's a really interesting merging of publicly available data, right? That like average rainfall data, for example, that's public data that we all have access to. We can incorporate that into our maps and our applications and our stories. But then this other customized data that's being collected through the app about where the downspouts are and what are the different infrastructures that exist on the property, et cetera. So and then the algorithm to sort of calculate permeable surfaces or not, where's water being absorbed. There's some things that are being developed on their side, and then there's this publicly available side. And so for us to start thinking about how can we utilize those public data resources and how can we build into those and build on top of those to add value to them is a conversation I'd love for those of us who are really interested in the GIS and the data side of things to be leaning into over the next few months together. So just wanted to kind of call that out.
Yeah, I can't remember which lesson it is off the top of my head, but there's one that literally walks you through how do you get the local, I mean, we give examples of Hawaii, so it shows all where you get the data, the rainfall, how you use a polygon tool on Google Earth, I mean, just, simple things that you have access to. And then we just have sort of like back of the envelope, like typical rain garden sizes for a single family house and things like that. And then there's how to build rain gardens from Huiokolapoko. And so there's that information is all listed there. So in theory, you can still go through it without kind of the more tech side of it, as Dan was saying.
Yeah. Oh, I love that too, right? It's sometimes the low tech solutions, you don't get stuck, you don't get hung up on the technology, and you're able to accomplish a lot. So,
Yeah.
Or the technologies are just not always digital. Yeah, they can. I have a friend who says community is the original technology. So you just get people together, and I know I see Kaika here in the call, and I just always admire the work they do. Just Kaika is like one real high-tech Hawaiian, one of the members of our project team, but also spends time just placing pohaku where they belong and studying that and doing that. That's an awesome technology too, and doing it together with your friends and neighbors. So, I think there's a lot here for us to think about, Lauren. I'm excited for Saturday morning. Again, really appreciate you. And then I'm gonna hold a little bit of a space if there are any sort of final words or questions, and then maybe we can even, this is unheard of for one of my sessions to end early, but maybe it'll even end early. That'd be possible. Yeah, any questions or thoughts for Lauren or for the whole Hui? It's really good to see you. It's nice to get to see so many of you. It feels like it's been a long time, over a month since the 15th of December. And for some of you, it's been longer than that I've gotten to see you. So this is a treat.
I'll just pipe in that, of course, we're sitting here on the Big Island, and Omicron kind of threw a wrench in all of travel. But I talked to my safety committee today, and they're like, yeah, we're trying to figure out travel testing and, some kind of more restrictions to keep our community isolated. But yes, find community partners, go do canoe, do stuff on the island. They're gung-ho about this, and they want us to be getting the kids out there. And we know those are good, safe experiences. So we're going to try to emulate what happens on Saturday in our space and create that here. So we're
Oh, I
excited.
love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And yeah, Jennifer, that just, I hadn't even thought of that. But if there are folks not, you know, you're not on Oahu, it's not safe to travel. And we may be able to just host sessions later. I don't think we're going to cancel anything, but we might be able to invite people over once things have calmed down and just do another session with an amazing community here. But please don't hesitate if you're like, well, okay, we're going to watch the videos or we'll tune into some of the recordings or stuff that comes later, but we have some time on Saturday to now, and we're going to go play and explore and connect. And yeah, absolutely. That's, you know, I would love that. So yeah, please, please everybody feel like, even if it's not the right thing for you, even if you're on Oahu, but it's not the right thing for you to be joining a group on Saturday morning, please get out and connect with your place. Tune in online when you can. There's going to be talking with Captain Bruce Blankenfeld in the evening. Is going to be special. Sailing with Austin and having some time to practice the app and meet Lauren on Saturday, and time with Malama Monolua and the Coral Resilience Lab. They're going to be out there with us in the afternoon. And our friends from Local Ea, I think I saw Ikaika might be coming around the corner from Waimanalo in the afternoon. So some of our project team's going to be there. And so yeah, excited to have people there, but also yeah, everybody make sure they're safe.
Also, did anybody see the coral planting that Cliff Capono was doing over the holidays? They went down and they're harvesting and growing coral down in Tahiti. Go to Mega Labs. They've got stuff. It's just that, and the mapping pipeline are just like my top two favorite things of 2021.
Yeah, for sure. Big thanks, Jennifer. A shout out to our Big Island family, yeah, because they're always doing awesome mega things, the Mega Lab, but also all of you on the Big Island and everywhere. It was a great conversation. The Kahui Ohana is represented tonight, and had an amazing conversation with them about their work on Maui that they're going to be able to do. And so just really thankful to know all of you. And yeah, Cliff and John and Haunani and that whole crew are so inspiring. And I also have a cool update on a project. I'll give it another time, but it's a shark conservation project in Papahanaumokuakea, and I'm gonna want the help of this hui on figuring out how to bridge ancestral intelligence, integrating ancestral intelligence and AI for the benefit of shark conservation. So in the island, so gonna need a lot of input, mana'o, from this hui. So exciting times ahead. I'm so excited for 2022, and these Omicron numbers is trying to spoil my party, but yeah, I'm looking forward to working with all of you. All right. I'll stick on till 8:30 because that's the time that I set, but I will formally just offer a big mahalo to Lauren, a big mahalo to all of you for showing up, spending a Wednesday night. I hope I get to see many of you on Saturday. And yeah, I'm so thankful for all of you. So mahalo nui, and have a good evening, and send me a message, join Mighty Network, and post some stuff that you're up to if you've got fun photos, or yeah, connect with one another that way. I hope it works, and we'll talk soon. Aloha everyone, and a hui ho.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Thank you very much. See you Saturday.
See you Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, where are we meeting?
We can meet at Pico at the access there. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it, well, quick question for you actually. Because mahalo. Oh, I love it, Loana. Even the pup came. Even the pup. This is amazing.
It's amazing.
Oh my goodness. Lauren, I wondered about because of the proximity of those homes to the ocean, does that mess with the data? Does it make it, no, it's okay?
No, yeah, no, it should be. I mean, you meaning like if they can do projects or not?
Well, do projects, and does it like, yeah, I just didn't know, like, It's actually, it'll be kind of interesting, right? Because Pico is kind of unique, but it used to be just a sand dune covered in alpaca probably, but now it's a sand dune covered in
Houses.
homes. So,
Right.
maybe
Yeah, I
it's
mean, the
super
same-
relevant.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the same, even though it's not necessarily recharging the water supply, it's still producing potentially pollution coming off, fertilizers or whatever else they're using. So you still want to try to minimize the runoff coming from those properties. So yeah, they're definitely still relevant.
Okay.
I know, like, generally, like we were talking about some of the folks in like the Guadalupe area, kind of down along the coast that floods a lot. There's a lot of folks. I don't know if Pico was necessarily part of those floods that happened, but there's certain communities that are kind of the lower end of those watersheds that have been getting a lot of the flood waters.
Yeah, they take all the water, right? So
Yeah, so they have other interests. So, I mean, in that sense, like doing more catchment tanks to store at least the volume coming off their property so it doesn't contribute to additional is kind of at least one of the angles for that. So
cool. Do you know the Lockridge family? Do you know Mark? Have you ever met Mark
I-
Lockridge?
I don't.
Yeah, interesting guy, entrepreneur, and he worked in like game development for a long time, but now he's really focused on sustainability oriented innovations. And his family is a good partner with Malama Mauna Lua, and
Okay.
they're the helm on the beach access there. We store some of our gear on their property, and Mark's willing to have us kind of do a little demo at his
Yeah.
house.
Why
So
don't we do that?
does that work? Is that good?
Yeah, why don't we do that? If you want to speak, we can meet there. If you want to just send, if you could send me his address, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll send that precise location over to
Because
you.
yeah, then we could actually do an assessment and we can see how it would be done, and hopefully it's one that we can actually find something to do. But yeah, at least give it an idea of how it works.
Awesome.
Cool. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. See ya.
Aloha.
Aloha.